generation, there's a podcast that changes everything.
This is unprecedented.
A phenomenon that challenges the social norm.
I've never seen anything like this.
A spectacle that brings people together while taking the world by storm.
If you are told to evacuate, make sure that you seek shelter.
They say lightning never strikes twice. Ah, it. Who are we kidding?
Let's go kill some sharks!
You asked interrogative questions around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric back with a special edition of ML Soul of Detroit. Now, normally our editions are pretty special, but if you're watching us on YouTube, you see we have a new graphic. We had our intro built on a famous hurricane, the one from Sharknado, but here we're talking about something a little more serious. That's Hurricane Katrina with Pulitzer Prize winner Sheri Fink, who's the author of 5 Days at Memorial, which was recently turned into an 8-part series, 5 Days at Memorial, on Apple TV. Is it Apple TV Plus?
Yes.
Because I just saw an ad for Hulu where they said, we don't know.
Don't talk about the competition.
Our new service is going to be Hulu TV Plus, and I can't keep up with all the superlatives, but it's a fantastic show, and I have not finished watching this series. I finished watching episode 5 last night, and I had to turn it off because my wife was crying because she was so moved by not just the situation, but how compelling it's been recounted in a series that, from what I understand, seems to be pretty true to the book, looking at the 5 days where people were trapped in Memorial Hospital in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, some of the life and death decisions that were made, and then it transitions into the investigation into whether or not these doctors violated the Hippocratic Oath and several laws of the state of Man and Louisiana, which don't always line up perfectly. So, Sheri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your podcast, ML.
Well, we appreciate it. And our show is brought to you by Hall Financial and Luke Nowacki with Pinnacle Wealth Strategy. We're going to talk a little bit about them in a minute. But I have to tell Sheri a fun fact about how far back our families go. Herschel Fink is her father, who is the lawyer for the Detroit Free Press. Everybody knows that. But I didn't find out until several years ago that our families intersected years before, because Herschel's had to defend me and other people at the Free Press. But the first time our families met, he was suing my dad because my dad had a lingerie shop called Precious Moments Lingerie. What? And Herschel was representing Precious Moments figurines, who thought their treacly little bits of ceramic may somehow be diminished by being associated with the teddies and garters and various devices that my dad was peddling after he retired from the police department. So
this explains a lot.
Yeah, so let's put all that in the past, Sheri. Let's start. Let's start fresh.
I did not know that, and I'm so honored, especially honored that you would have me on your podcast after such a history.
Well, I don't know if my old man ever paid the settlement, so I'm hoping you'll put a word in for me back home. But yeah, so that's where we started, so and weird. Somehow we've ended up here.
Okay.
Very good. Well, an origin story.
The series is fantastic. I was telling you off the air, one of the things that makes it so good are the ethical questions, because 45 people died in this hospital, correct? It was 45?
Well, there were 45 bodies found after the when the disaster mortuary teams came in, and I think ultimately about 5 of those had died like just before the hurricane. So like 40 people in the space of the storm and then the aftermath.
Now, watching the series, and you've talked to people in your research for the book. 2 doctors specifically told you that, yeah, we euthanized them, correct?
It's interesting. They actually didn't use that word, and that word, the book actually goes into the history of what is euthanasia. And I guess to make a long story short, euthanasia means good death, and generally anywhere in the world that does allow it, which is obviously very controversial for health providers who are dedicated and take a sacred oath to protect life, to cross that line. But in the places where it is allowed, it is with patient consent. And whatever you think of what happened in this case, the facts matter, and the facts are that these patients, as far as we know, were not consulted. So the doctors who told me, they basically said they intentionally hastened the deaths of their patients by giving them drugs. 2 doctors did tell me that.
It's hard to not have an opinion or put yourself in the shoes, and that's what's good about it. The protagonist and the antagonist are very. You have a lot of feeling for both of them. You understand why people did what they did, but then you sit and watch and go, yeah, from my couch, that's an easy decision. Put these people out of their misery. But then I always figure, well, yeah, if that was me, I'd be injected with these medications and the cavalry would arrive. And so I don't know what to make of it, who was right and who was wrong in administering these medications.
Why are you looking at me? Do you two want to euthanize me?
Kind of, sometimes.
We do. We just don't want to go through the counseling.
I want to get life into you.
Oh, okay.
I want to get you going. But has that been the reaction to the book and to the show, that everyone's like, yeah, I would do it, or no, I wouldn't do it? And I wonder what most people fall on, what side.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. Well, I mean, for viewers or listeners who don't know the story, basically, this was a hospital that was surrounded by floodwaters after the levees broke, after Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005. And like we're hearing now with the Hurricane Ian and the aftermath, these hospitals were not particularly well prepared to have things like, the running water failed, power failed, backup power was about to fail and ultimately did fail. And so the book and then the series is a dramatic adaptation. So the book is nonfiction, but the series is based on it. And it kind of reconstructs those 5 days in the hospital as the conditions worsened, and it puts you in the center as the viewer. And the goal of that is so that you kind of walk along and you have empathy for what's happening and for the suffering and the difficult dilemmas and the choices about, helicopters are coming. So who do you rescue first? How do you decide who to move out of this place? And thinking about those types of issues. And I would say that the response to the series and the response to the book have been similar in that you see that viewers really are debating, or they're taking very strong opinions on one side or another about this question of what to do with the patients who at some point, some physicians and nurses felt could not be saved. And like one of you said, that's like up for debate. And one of the things I've learned, I'm actually a doctor by training, became a journalist, but did a lot of disaster relief work and relief work in war zones. And you find that a really important aspect of this concept called triage, that word you hear when you go to a hospital, like which patient goes into the hospital first, gets seen first in an ER. But this same kind of sorting can happen in an emergency. And there are sort of all different ways to do this. And the important thing is that resources can change. And so if you are sort of committing to an irreversible choice, that is somewhat a dangerous thing, because then you might suddenly have the helicopters arrive, as in this situation. So, but the point is to make people think. It's not so much to look back and judge those people as to make us feel like we really don't want this to happen again, no matter where we stand on some of these difficult ethical dilemmas.
Well, one of the things that I think people should understand is, while this is a very compelling series and it's very well done, the book is also outstanding. It was named one of New York Times 10 best books in the year it was published. And it's staggering the work that went into it. If you think about as a reporter, trying to recreate a situation, you're now going into a situation where everybody involved doesn't want to talk to you. where many of the people are either dead or trying to recover from the trauma they went through or are still grieving, where people may not live where they used to live because their neighborhoods were completely and utterly wiped out, where everybody's lawyered up, where people have been prosecuted. I mean, it's an incredibly daunting challenge, and Sheri spoke to over 500 people, and it's an amazing story. I don't know how they boiled it down, and I know from just talking to Herschel that at one time it was being optioned as a movie, and now it's 8 parts. I wonder, when you look at that book and you think about how do we get all this good stuff in under, like Spartacus length movie, are you happy that it's a television presentation now as opposed to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, a box of popcorn, and oh my God, they left so many good things out? Because I'm sure they still did leave many amazing things out, but.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And first of all, ML, because you're an amazing journalist, you totally understand the kinds of challenges of telling a story like this in terms of getting people to, or just trying to figure out who would be able to speak and why they might want to speak about this and help others understand such a difficult, traumatic situation. So having the length of time to work on it as a book, which was many years, I think that actually worked in the favor of some people who weren't initially able to talk, ultimately did speak once all the legal issues were cleared up. There were civil and criminal cases that followed, and that's one interesting thing you get to follow in the series is that process. But certainly, I think, when the book came out was 2013, and this format of like a limited TV series, a limited dramatic series, I don't know if it even existed. And so I remember when there was an initial plan and hope to make it into a movie, and wonderful people working on that too. It didn't ultimately work out, but yeah, it was sort of like triage. You had to decide which parts to cut and which parts to keep. And Apple just did an amazing, amazing support of this project. So you can see it's just incredible the realistic way that the hospital was depicted. The art department and the production designers were just brilliant. They worked off of materials that I had collected over the years, and it's like the spitting image of the hospital, so seamless. They were even able to use archival and kind of weave it in. And then the two people who created it, produced it, 2 of the 3 directors, and wrote it. These 2 people, John Ridley and Carlton Cuse, were just absolutely amazing. And then Wendy Stansler, also a brilliant director, directed some of the episodes, and the cast. And they all really honor the fact that these were real people, even though it's it's a dramatic series. Certain things are changed in it, but there was an abiding respect for the fact that this was, a national tragedy, a national trauma, and a trauma for the people who went through it.
There's been a lot of these limited series that are based on nonfiction books, and I don't know how common it is. I felt like it wasn't that common that the actual author of the book became a producer. Is that something, when this is getting shopped around, that you wanted to be a producer to honor the book, or did they want you because you just have the most insight on the story?
I don't know about their feeling, but I can say I feel very lucky that it landed here. I mean, that was part of it. I remember early on being told you don't have so much control when you give this over to the people who know how to make TV. I don't know how to make TV, but the one thing you can do is choose the people you entrust it with. And when I spoke with John and Carlton early on, and they were encyclopedic into the book, and they welcomed the idea of my participation. And so, yeah, I felt very protective, especially of the real people who were involved. And just, that was like the main aim, was to try to ensure that that it honored the real situation, that any sort of dramatic liberties that were taken didn't in any ways, compromise the, I would say, the integrity of it, or, put people in a bad light. And they did nothing like that. That was very much, I just received the nicest note from a person yesterday who is depicted in the series, somebody who's been very private and went through a very difficult time, just talking about that it was incredibly healing for this person to watch it with their family. And so that made me feel very happy, because I think that was one of the things that I was most concerned about.
Sheri, how did you get involved with this story? How did it kind of come about, and what made you decide you want to turn it into a book?
I was a responder to Katrina, actually. At that time, I was still doing humanitarian aid work overseas. And then this huge disaster hit my own country. I think I was coming back to the U.S. like that week that Katrina hit. And so I volunteered in the shelters, and I'd just written a book about a war hospital. So happy subjects. But there's a theme here, and having trained as a doctor, and when you learn to write, you're told write what you know. So this, it hit the news. There was a very, at the time, it was like a big, big story that there were rumors that something had happened at this one hospital. And of course, there were many hospitals in a similar kind of situation, surrounded by water, waiting days for rescue, power going out. But at this one hospital, so many bodies were found. And very early on, some of the staff who were there said something happened that shouldn't have happened. So I know it's like easy for us to sort of sit back in our comfortable chairs and draw judgments about what happened. But in fact, the people at that hospital who have a right to have an opinion about it, because they were there too, they split on the question of what was right to do.
I was watching a news report, I think it was from a New Orleans TV station, when the series was coming out. And it was basically, there's a lot of raw feelings still 17 years later about how it's going to be presented. Almost, I guess that's to be expected. You want to protect, Memorial and what it is now. Have you heard that kind of feedback? And I know you interviewed Dr. Poe for the book. Have you heard anything about her thoughts regarding the miniseries coming out and reliving all this again?
Yeah, I mean that TV piece came out before the series, so nobody had watched it.
People always complain before they watch something now. We know that. So.
Yeah, but I think it's understandable. These are really difficult events to live through. And I remember when 9/11, when the anniversary, I live in New York and have for many years. And when that 20th anniversary was coming up, I felt like, it's all over the TV, all these series are coming out. And for a while, I felt like I couldn't look at it. And then suddenly something changed, and I actually did watch some things, and it helped me process things. So I think everybody's different is the point. And I wouldn't judge anybody for not wanting to watch this if they themselves had gone through it. I've always felt like it's really important for people, the larger, the rest of us, to see what happened, to grapple with it. And it helps us be better citizens. I mean, look at what we're seeing now in terms of the hurricanes, the stress, that thousands of evacuations of medically fragile people. We need to do better. And these issues have not been resolved. And so, that is the larger aim of telling a story like this. It is a really important story. It's, an important piece of what happened with Katrina, but it tells a larger story of, who we as voters, we as individuals, what can we do to make our families more prepared, ourselves more prepared? I saw people posting who had watched the series and said, I'm evacuating. So if it could have that effect, if it can teach us about, teach is perhaps the wrong word, because it's also a really gripping watch. But if it can inform us, if it can inspire us, if it can enrage us and make us want to make changes that could protect human life, I think, and lessen suffering, then that is the goal. So, and as far as the Dr. Poe, she's one of the doctors who was at the center of the allegations. She injected some patients. She was arrested later by the Attorney General. You can see the details in the series, but she's always maintained that she was innocent of what she was charged with. So not one of the two doctors who told me that they intentionally hastened death. This is another doctor. And she has just always, stated that she does not watch the news. She does not watch. So I think there was a statement that she would not be watching this, that she wasn't involved in making it. And that's all I know.
Well, she'll be watching it vicariously because there's no way that people who know her are not telling her what it was like, or that she can resist the urge to say, okay, how did I come out? And that's just human nature. My only complaint about the series is it's taken away the thing that I'm always able to say when I'm watching something incredibly moving with people, where I'm like, it's not real. Don't get so upset. This is all made up. This is Hollywood, but this isn't. In fact, some of the people, it's their real names, and I found that kind of extraordinary, because often when you see these things, there's composite characters, 4 people congeal into one, and then they have some name, and it's usually some sort of corny name, like my name is
Alric.
Angel Pagan or something. It's like, oh, is he an angel or is he a devil? But it's the nurse that cares about everybody. And this is, this is really real. It's in fact, I can't wait to see the end of it, because it's just pivoted for me to the point where one of the doctors, who starts off being I think sort of a very sympathetic and very compelling character, is just about to end up in the crosshairs. But before we get to that, I have to ask you, because you are a doctor, and because I'm sure your dad is watching on YouTube, as we encourage everybody to watch us on YouTube channel, ML Elric. And somebody's posted.
I heard you tried to put him up to surprising me.
No, I invited him to sit in. I didn't know that we'd be able to keep him quiet. That's the problem. And he knows himself pretty well. And he said, I don't know that I should probably do that. And I said, I always defer to counsel on these matters. So I think he's watching. But somebody has posted, who's Herschel Fink? So we're going to have to straighten that guy out later.
Google it, yeah.
But this is a Herschel question, because somebody had a daughter who became a doctor and must have been very proud. And then they said, I want to be a reporter. And was there anybody who said, you've got this all backwards?
He only has himself to blame, because my dad was a reporter before he became the lawyer for the Free Press. He was a reporter for the Detroit News, and and then his passion for the First Amendment led him to law school while I was growing up. And so I grew up around, going with him downtown to news meetings and to his classes where he taught media law at Wayne State University. And so I've always been, just like the importance of the media, of journalism as a cornerstone of our democracy was just like in my DNA. It was around the dinner table discussions. So ultimately, my passion for writing and for communicating and journalism, took me in this weird direction. But yes, it was a a difficult conversation, probably, as I made that transition after having gone through so much schooling for another career. I think honestly, it was harder for my mom, who had passed away a number of years ago. But even she ultimately, I think, came to terms with it. My dad has always loved journalism. I think he could totally relate to why this felt important, communicating that passion of medicine and trying to help others kind of appreciate it as well. And then going back to something else you said just earlier, I want to say, in terms of the real people, there are some composite characters. The series, obviously, it's a dramatic series. It's based on the book. It's not exact. I hope people will, who are interested will read the book and get more details of what really happened. But in terms of the people whose names were used, and, they had been in articles, and the book has been out for many years. Their names were out there, but what's been quite striking is that the actors who embodied the characters based on the real people were incredible advocates for them, and that's not only on screen but actually in privately as well. And they've talked about some of that in their interviews, which I've watched some of them being interviewed. And so I think that really comes through, because the portrayals are so empathetic. And it's really not one of those series where there's a good guy and a bad guy.
There's no one to really hate in this. You just feel bad for everybody. Just some decisions are in question. Sorry, ML.
Yeah, and I think you can have a lot of empathy for people, and you can still say, you know what? That is not what we want to see happening. Or, there were other options. Like they there were other options besides the one that was chosen. And we know that from other hospitals where the same events did not take place. So I think you can both empathize and also see a way toward perhaps this not happening again. And the big thing that's striking me, you know, as I revisit this 10 years after the book, 9 years after the book, is just the vulnerable people are the vulnerable people for all of these crises. It's like when we're in a pinch and when we're going through a pandemic or a hurricane, who is it who's suffering? Who is it who's dying? And it's the people, the same groups of people, and the people who are not being valued as they should be. And hopefully through the series, you see the value of, you know, a man, for example, a patient who can't walk. He's had a spinal cord stroke, but he, you know, that's just one aspect of him. And so his life has so much value, and that is across the board. So if I have one takeaway, it's like we need to do better at involving, you know, people with disabilities, for example, like this man, who are, you know, very creative in their daily lives, adapting to challenges. Like those are the people who should be at the center of how we prepare for disasters, and their lives need to be prioritized as well. So I'm just like blown away. Why don't we have a way to get somebody down 8 flights of stairs who is obese and can't walk? Like that's a lot of people in this country. If there's a hurricane and the power goes out, like why don't we have ways to do that? We need to have ways to do that. It's astonishing that people are dying for these types of reasons.
And when that really showed in the series with Emmett. I mean, Emmett Everett, and I ended up going, you know, because of the Google machine, doing just a deep dive and reading a lot on him, and it's just really sad. He's, I think he's 60. He wasn't terribly old. He was immobile, though, I believe, right? He couldn't.
He was paralyzed.
Paralyzed.
Was he a former nurse too?
He was not a former nurse.
Oh, that was the other guy who got out, right?
Yeah, there was. Okay. Yeah, there's sort of like another obese gentleman who had been a nurse and was also at the hospital, and his rescue kind of showed that it could be done.
Could be done. Yeah.
But Emmett Everett, you know, a different path was taken with him, and his body was found after the storm with these drugs that the health providers had injected, and that you know, the series takes you through how that ended up happening, but you learn about him.
Oh, right. I did think of the person to hate in this, not really a person, more of an entity, and it's the big hospital corporations. Who did they ever pay any kind of penalty? Did Emmett's family ever able to sue and get anything from Tenet Health or Life Care?
So his family and others, there was actually a class action civil suit against the various entities that owned, you know, this hospital, and it went up and down in the courts and took many, many years to resolve. Ultimately, there was a settlement with no admission of any wrongdoing,
of course.
And people got a little bit of money. I think the families of the patients who died got more. Even the doctor at the center of the accusations took a cut as well of the settlement funds because she was entitled. And that family also filed civil lawsuit, civil complaint. Forget the words. Like you said, Louisiana has a different system than most of America's states. It's based on French law, apparently. Yeah. But in any case, they filed a civil complaint against this doctor who we were talking about, as well as some others. And there were settlements, as I understand it. But as part of that, there were these hush-hush clauses. And so the families were not, like at some point, the families who did settle with the providers or with the hospital had to agree never to basically talk about it again.
Which complicates the reporting, because at least with a criminal charge, when someone is, you know, there's double jeopardy. When you're cleared forever. But with a civil case, you can appeal, you can file under another. I mean, it just complicates the reporting to no end. But one of the things you said really struck me. One of the first investigations I ever did, and it was a very small one, was at Michigan State, when I just simply did a story that said the disabilities office is on the 4th floor of the Communication Arts Building. And I called the university's building management guy and I said, what happens to those people if they're up there at a meeting and there's a fire and they shut down the elevators? And he said, I just never thought of that. I mean, so it was like a half-hour investigation, but these things happen all the time. But at the same time, and I think one of the things that is so compelling about the series is, let's say they had everybody on the ground floor and then it floods and now you have to move them to the top floor so they can get to the helicopter. You know, when these disasters happen, there's almost whatever you do, it can be the wrong decision. And I don't know if through your research and your experience, you've come up with in your own mind what would be a reasonable solution to where do we put people when the danger could be coming from below, could be coming from above. I mean, oh my God, who's going to solve that?
Well, it's such an excellent question. I love how you conceptualized that and framed it. And that's also sounds like a great.
You mean around himself?
What's that?
You mean framed around himself? Yeah, that was great. He's never done that before. So he stepped out. He stepped out there. Yeah.
Shawn gets a black armband.
So people who can't navigate stairs should have a way to get down in an emergency, regardless of the disability office. But that is a prime example. And I saw there was a student who was doing some activism at one of the campuses. Now I forget which, to try to ensure that there are like chairs that can help people get down these steps, no matter, why they might be in a building. Anyways, it's a whole very, very important topic. And I hope somebody who listens to this will take it forward. And I intend to try to keep raising awareness about that. But getting back to your question, which is a very good one, I think it highlights something which is really my takeaway after years of working in disasters, writing about disasters, being a responder myself. And it's two things. One is that we can be more prepared. We can certainly be more prepared. And those hospitals in New Orleans, they took a lot of steps. So now, I was just kind of chuckling to myself, but not with mirth. When I saw some hospital in Florida recently sort of like saying, well, we don't have water. That's not our fault. That's the city's fault. But the hospitals in New Orleans, some of them, including this one, after Katrina, they built wells, like dug a well so that they will have water if the city water goes out. Like, there are things that you can do to be more prepared if you're in a type of a situation where, like a coastal storm area where this is likely to happen. Same with, building generator systems that are much more hardened for these types of disasters that are the most common for your area. And in each area, of course, there are different hazards that pose the greatest threat of the rare but very foreseeable kinds of catastrophes. So that's one thing, is that we can be doing a heck of a lot more. And it's all about, again, like triage, and where do we want to put our resources? Where do we want our community to put their resources? How much do we want our hospitals to spend on protecting us and our loved ones in case there's a power outage, which in Michigan could happen in a winter storm, for example. So that's one thing, is yes, more needs to be done, more can be done. A lot of these problems can be mitigated, prevented. But the second piece gets at something you point to, which is that there is no perfect preparedness. It's like in the military, those who've served, that you prepare for battles and then there can be surprises. And the scenario that you drill for will likely not be exactly what you're going to meet. So you also have to prepare to be flexible and to make good decisions in a crisis. And so there's that personal piece. And the reason why the series and the book looks at individual decisions is that any of us could be in a situation where our, workplace, our locality has not invested enough in preparedness or has done the wrong kinds of things. And it becomes like we become the first responders, the de facto first responders, because the real first responders are overwhelmed. And we all have to prepare to do that. You can take a class and learn how to stop the bleed. And that way, if you come across a motor vehicle accident or a gunshot wound, you can help save a life. So there are things that we can do to improve our own preparedness. Having the tools to administer an antidote for people who take an opiate overdose, again, save a life. So it's all about preparing, helping, not only kind of insisting or campaigning for these larger issues to be dealt with and more to be invested, and demanding that of our private corporations or our public institutions, but also think about yourself, think about your family and your community. What do you want to do to be more prepared?
Well, Sheri, you've put these issues before the public. I saw a forum you did where you said, and it was chilling. You're like, we have a ventilator shortage. What do we do if we have a 1918 style pandemic? And I had to check the date on this interview because I thought, oh shit, we did have a 1918 style pandemic and we didn't have enough ventilators. And why the hell weren't they listening to Dr. Fink, Pulitzer Prize winner, before 2019? How do you feel when these things are very plain to see? You put them in the public domain, in print, very well read, very widely read, on TV now, and yet we seem to find ourselves on this treadmill where the reason why maybe Ian isn't as bad as Katrina is because we're just lucky, not because they read 5 Days at Memorial. I mean, do you ever feel like you're just shouting into the fan?
Yeah, I mean, I can have some pretty, it can feel like, why does any of this matter sometimes? But I guess I would say a few things about that. I mean, first of all, it's very rare that a piece of journalism changes the whole world. It does happen occasionally, but I think somebody very wise early on taught me that if that's your expectation when you go into journalism, you will be, cruelly disappointed and disillusioned and depressed. But and it is hard to see the same kinds of things happening. And I'm looking at Ukraine, and my first book was about a war hospital in Bosnia and war crimes and crimes against humanity and violations of medical neutrality. This concept that you do not attack a hospital in a war zone, that there's actually rules to war. So when you see those kinds of horrific things happening again, it can be very, like for journalists who write about them, or I suppose, people who are activists who campaign on these issues, it can be very disheartening to see that sometimes we don't learn or not enough is invested. But I do think that that a difference does get made, and but it's on a smaller level. And so I know of individual instances where, for example, somebody read the book. I remember this hurricane in Florida I was reporting on a few years back, and I always ask this question, like, was there anything that you did that helped when the disaster came? Like anything that your fire department invested in or your hospital invested in terms of preparedness that actually paid off. And this, I'll never forget this. I think she was like a director of a small emergency medical services, ambulance company out in this part of Florida. And she said, actually, we read your book, and there was a little bit of money for preparedness. And so we retrofitted our ambulances to be able to take bariatric patients, which are like very obese patients. And then we ended up using them to get those people out of town who weren't mobile, who were at risk as the hurricane was coming. And so when you look at or somebody will come up to me at a conference and say, I went into, emergency response because I read your book and it made me passionate about helping to solve some of these problems. So I think that's where I take my, how I keep going in terms of finding any value in raising attention to these issues, is that it does make a difference in some people's lives. And that's just the way you have to look at it.
And you never know who's going to read it, because one of the big examples is the Great Influenza book. I'm going to forget his name. John Barry. John Barry, I think, wrote the Great
Barry, yes.
Am I close? He writes the book. President Bush reads it summer of 2005, which is interesting, right before Katrina. And then afterwards I think he just started devoting money to being prepared for a pandemic. So that book got in the president's hands. He makes a plan, and then a few years goes by and we decide, we don't need to spend money on that. And I know you're working on a COVID book. I don't know what aspect of it, but is it just as simple as it's going to be someone else's problem? We don't want to spend money on it now. Is that just too simple of a way to think about it?
Well, of course not. I mean, Well, that is what happens. Yeah. But no, I mean, I think you raised something, which is that preparedness is not like a one-time investment.
Yeah.
It is
Yes.
it's just like if you were on a sports team. I know you guys like to talk about sports on this podcast, and it wouldn't be like, the team practices and buys some great equipment and then waits, until the game happens. You have to always be exercising. And that is very true of this preparedness stuff. I'll never forget the story from this famous flooding disaster that happened after Tropical Storm Allison. This was a few years before Katrina hit the Houston area. And there's this Texas Medical Center. It's very unique, but all these major hospitals, these fantastic hospitals in Houston, are all in the same area of town because there was like some land that was given for them. And apparently several of the hospitals connected below ground in some series of tunnels. And so they had invested in a flood door system. But by the time that tropical storm came and they had flooding, nobody remembered that this system existed, and they left it open. And the place flooded, and all these patients had to be evacuated, and they lost power. So I think it's mentioned in the book, in 5 Days at Memorial, the book. But it just gets that idea across that you don't just like invest in stuff and go away. It is a process, and it has to be, invested in and practiced. And those little drills that annoy all of us, the fire drills and whatnot, there's a purpose for them so that we develop that muscle memory so that when the crisis happens and we're scared or we're exhausted, that we react in ways that will help save our lives. And I'll also say it's just a question of triage, right? Like we all have our day-to-day priorities. And so maybe it's not so surprising that money doesn't always get invested in these kinds of like scenarios that we know are rare. We know they're very possible. And so maybe we have, as a society, decided that we just want to throw the dice and make that gamble. But as we see, and the purpose of telling these stories is to sort of show what happens, what the consequences are of not preparing more.
Well, that's one of the things I always worry about is this a matter of acceptable risk, where if you have a line item in your budget, for our survivalist listeners, you do have to check the date on that peanut butter and the water and the batteries that are in your basement and your shelter, because doing it once doesn't necessarily protect you forever. For folks who have been affected by the flood here in Detroit, we talk a lot about backflow preventers. Well, if those aren't serviced on a regular basis, they can freeze up, and when they're supposed to do their stuff, they may not be functioning. So you can't just do it once and say, we're done. But I wonder if there are points where people say, you know what, we could spend $1 billion on this and save a few lives, or we could spend $1 billion and build a bunch of schools and then improve 1,000. Who makes these decisions? And I think what ends up happening is they get kicked down the road.
Yeah, the point is that it shouldn't be an either or. And so there is a sort of foundational notion in preparedness, which is that the more functional your infrastructure is on a day-to-day basis, the better it's going to serve you in a crisis. And I think that's largely true. And then you can think of investments that could have a dual use, that could help you on a daily basis and also help you in a crisis. And one of the examples of that, I think NYU Hospital in New York City a few years ago went to some sort of a cogeneration power system that apparently this power plant makes them more efficient on a daily basis, reduces certain costs, but also supposedly will be more resilient if there is like a coastal storm that hits here. And we had in New York City, we had Hurricane Sandy a few years back that caused a massive disruption in our medical infrastructure as well as city infrastructure. So those kinds of investments that benefit you on a daily basis can also help you in disasters. So to me, if I were, making some decisions, that's where I would go. And truly, like you said, if you're stockpiling on a personal basis, you want to rotate those things out. So you eat your peanut butter before it expires, but put the new one down in the shelter or whatnot. So there are ways to rotate stockpiles so that they're always fresh. And yeah, you can't just leave them. Yeah, and I remember at the start of this pandemic, when our health workers were finding their N95 boxes, and a friend of mine was working at a hospital in Los Angeles, and he kept putting the mask on and the elastic would break, and putting the mask on and the elastic would break. And you find, I had also saved some from 2015 and 2014 going to West Africa during the Ebola crisis, and as a journalist, and I had some masks, and sure enough, if you don't rotate them out in a few years, the elastic may not be. This is why we have expiration dates on some of these things.
Yeah.
So that's important.
And don't leave it in the sun. Sheri, I want to talk before we let you go about your role as a producer. I noticed you didn't get a writing credit, but it seems to be very true to the book and to your story that you told. As a producer, we see executive produce, and that tends to be almost like an honorific or something. But what is your role as a producer, and how much authority did you have over what we were going to see on the screen? Because I think most authors are just so happy to get a deal. Like, you're going to make my movie, great. And they say, Elmore Leonard, was legendary how many books he had that got turned into movies where he said, I had nothing to do with that. Take my name off it. He just was miserable. But you seem to have had, it seems, a uniquely influential role in what we're seeing without actually writing it.
Well, first, I don't know how to write for TV. I suppose it's something I could learn. And I have to say, some authors, I think more and more, are taking executive producer roles and learning to write for TV or movies. So that is something we're seeing more. There seems to be more openness to that, which is great. In this case, I had no power. I think you said power, but what I had were just some, honestly, terrific people to work with. And so, first of all, they were committed to basing the series on the book, and they kept that commitment. It is, very much based on the book, and follows the book structure, even in that, in the hospital and then after the
right.
Hospital structure. And as for me, I think it was just about, how much I wanted to be involved. And so I was able to not only work with the departments I mentioned, but also give feedback on scripts, work with the actors who might be curious about certain things. And it was also just fascinating. I visited set a couple of times in New Orleans and in Toronto, where it was shot in both places. And I just felt like my input was really welcomed. Those creative decisions were not mine. And I'm certain there were ideas that I had that were not taken, but I always felt like at least my feedback was listened to. And I think that's, very much what you can hope for. So I had a good experience, but it's not my product. It's definitely Carlton Cuse and John Ridley. This is their baby.
And there's one featurette I saw with you and Carlton where you're on set, felt like it was the hospital. That just the attention to detail was amazing. Were you ever on set when they did the exterior flood shots? Because I don't know how they did that, but it looked like because there was a lot of real footage too mixed in, which I just love, real news footage, makes it look even more authentic. But were you there when they did the exterior flood shots?
I got to see the sets, and the flood shots were done, and actually people who are interested can go. There are a series of behind the scenes videos that were released, they're on the page. If you go to the website for each episode, you can see the behind the scenes for that episode. And also, if you wait past all the credits, including the foreign language translations, it'll pop up and you can watch it. And there's one or two of them, if you're interested in how this stuff gets made, which is fascinating, especially with a production like this with Apple TV Plus. It does have the Plus, giving so many resources for this. So they built I couldn't tell if it sometimes said a 2 million gallon or a 2 million liter water tank in Toronto, Ontario. That is apparently the biggest water tank ever used in filming in that province in Canada. And so they actually put the actors, in that water, which Carlton, and I've listened to him talk about this, and John, they felt was an important aspect of the integrity of the experience. And so, so like part of what you're seeing may be with virtual effects, but a lot of the actual sets were built, the exterior of the hospital was built, and then this huge water tank that they filmed in. So I wasn't there during the water tank filming, but you can find photos and videos of that online. It's really cool. And I think there's even a short, I don't know if it's a behind the scenes or if you can like find it on social media, but the set designer, I think, like walks you through how some of the visual effects were done. And it's so interesting.
It is a visually stunning production. And just even in the introduction, when you see the roof come off the Superdome, you know something's happening. I mean, you know that this is going to be bad. And one of the things that when I watched it was the first episode is staggeringly scary, and then everything's calm. And you're like, well, we got like 6 or 7 more episodes to go. And then pretty soon you're like, oh, we're just getting warmed up. Okay, I got it. I mean, it's an outstanding production based on a fantastic book by a reporter who I think, I don't know if it's fair to say this, was almost born to write this, because if you spent 6 years doing the reporting, you came to that with a foundation that was laid through, 10 or 12 years of medical school and your experiences working in overseas war zone and triage hospitals. I don't know anybody else who could have done this in less than a lifetime. I mean, maybe Robert Moses could have pulled it off when he finally finishes the Lyndon Baines Johnson opus. But I mean, it's terrific, and we've really appreciated you making so much time for us. And I'm really glad that this was made into a broadcast production, that it was done with someone who took the care, the consultation, and who gave it the time that it really deserves, so that the story can be told without caricatures. I mean, composite characters is one thing, but caricatures, we don't really need those. And I don't know at this point, and I have a couple episodes to go, how I'm going to feel about everybody by the time it's over. I mean, you might change your opinion a few times. Thank you. Well, that is lavish praise, especially for someone with the family history that we have. As a defendant, I
owe it all to my dad. Dad is listening, so a lot of it, anyways.
He told me you owe it all to him. By the way, he mentioned that. He said she's nothing without me.
But kudos right back to you for the incredible work that you've done over the years. I know my dad has been very proud to represent you, and so yeah, it's really nice to be on this with somebody who understands the challenges of the type of journalism that we do.
Well, I am a raisin in the sun here. There's no comparing my work to what you've done, but I'll take it, and then I'll remind Shawn of it when we talk later.
And it's eligible, right, for next year's Emmys, correct? I mean, this wasn't because of when it aired, right? So could it be up for an Emmy?
I guess I don't know.
Oh yeah, just say yes. yes. I think it is. I think it aired late enough, so it's next year's, and that's the good thing about being a producer.
It wasn't this year, so
yeah.
So great. Please buy the book, watch the show. You won't be disappointed. And I understand. I think it's very informal, but Apple TV Plus's next major project will be an adaptation of the Kwame Sutra. So look for that. Before you cancel your subscription, because you're going to want to stick around for that. And I believe copies of the Kwame Sutra are still available at Salvation Armies throughout the metro area. So
I just came across my copy this morning.
In the garbage?
Just coincidentally.
It's a little hurtful that you don't take it everywhere you go. I mean,
I did take it. That's why it is here with me.
I'm told it can stop a bullet if you keep it in your pocket, but
it is.
I think
my book could stop a bigger bullet and be 600 pages. Yours is very thin.
It's a pamphlet,
much more quickly readable.
Yeah,
I would recommend that people get them both.
I hope
their library, of course.
I hope that neither one. I think mine has been banned by some Michigan libraries, but I think it may make a reference to drag queens. So
no, he's joking. Don't listen to him.
No, not yet.
It can't be banned if it's never made it in there.
Well, I hope no one will ever test our theory about whether it can stop a bullet, but if you got some time on your hands, watch the series, read the book. Really, I have a feeling that whichever one you start with, you're going to want to transition to the other one because that's what I'm going to do. And I will just tell you before we go, in 2013, when my book was being shopped around and Sheri's was doing so good, I was like, I hate that Sheri Fink, but I've come around on that too. She's so successful. She's done such great stuff. And I'm doing a podcast in the basement.
With me.
With Shawn.
With Shawn, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, you have a podcast. I don't have a podcast, ML.
That's because you prepare for disasters. I just find myself in the middle of them, and then we run some commercials. You know, but at least I've got lots of fresh water. So, well, thanks, Sheri. We look forward to your next book and whatever other endeavors you get into. And in the meantime, Herschel, I've got you on speed dial. So if I get in any trouble, I'll just hit number 1 on my phone.
I mean, he's not there. What do you expect him to respond?
No. I thought that's usually where Shawn comes in and says something about Grammy suits.
No, I don't want to interrupt this praise. Yeah, okay. No, it's good for you.
No,
okay. Well, let her enjoy her day then. Thank you, Sheri.
Yeah. Thanks, Sheri.
Emmett, I know
nice
how you
meet
feel.
you.
I know how you feel.
Really nice to meet you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sheri.
It was fun.
So this disaster was brought to you by Hall Financial, who can help you avoid a financial disaster by getting you a pretty good deal on a new mortgage or cash out refi
or debt consolidation, right?
If you want to buy a generator, maybe you want to take some cash out of your house to prepare for the next disaster.
If you have over $5,000 in credit card debt or you own a home, you got to call Hall Financial, see if they can help. Home equity is the most affordable resource to pay off high interest credit card debt, student loans, or even start that home renovation project you've been putting off. A free 5-minute mortgage review with Hall Financial is all it takes to see how much money you've gained in home equity. And in a lot of cases, you can even access money in 2 weeks or less. We all know they have over 5,000 5-star reviews. Hall Financial is Michigan's highest rated mortgage company. See if a cash out refinance makes sense for you right now. 866-CALL-HALL or click on the link on the website.
And if you have a financial disaster, well, you may feel like you're in the middle of one right now, but you don't have to wait for a helicopter. You don't have to wait for the National Guard or some good old boy on a fan boat. Luke Nowacki is the guy who can take you through these troubled waters to Valhalla.
Yeah, if you have one of those big decisions, you got to know how it's going to affect your current and future financial goals. So Luke's got a team at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. He can help you out, plan for the future and even for today. Call Luke 248-663-4748 for a complimentary consultation to see if your plan aligns with your goals, whatever you're doing. You got to call Luke.
And when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
I do want to say, by the way, for my money right now, Apple TV Plus is the best streaming service, which is funny because I used to dog them years ago, and then I got it and started watching. I mean, so many shows because I think I've talked about Severance a billion times.
Oh yeah,
Blackbird.
Yeah, enough with the Severance.
I know.
You'll be getting some Severance.
I'm a little annoying about
Knock
Severance.
it off. No, it's
We Crash. Loot is on there. Of course, a lot of people love Ted Lasso, the morning show. So.
When is Ted Lasso coming back? Is Wrexham going to steal Ted Lasso's audience?
Are you watching Welcome to Wrexham?
I am watching.
Really
I'm actually listening to it. I'm worried that I'm going to hit the Ryan Reynolds cuteness toxicity level at some point.
Yeah, that wears a little bit on me too. Ryan Reynolds is always on, but they do a really good job making it not about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney.
So I don't know Rob McElhenney. I mean, I know about his show and all that, but
you do know
find
Ryan
him
Reynolds. Do you guys hang out?
And Rob McElhenney.
I cut him loose.
He also has a show on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, he's too small.
Too small for me.
He's not handsome enough.
Well,
he's not you.
Let's just say you got to go to a tiebreaker.
He's certainly no Mark.
Yeah. No. There's only one Mark.
I would say HBO Max is kind of right there with.
They're there.
But
honestly,
I'm not as interested in as much stuff that they have. I mean, I like Succession, but the other stuff doesn't really do it.
Well, you don't like Game of Thrones.
Station 11.
Yeah, I'm not into dragons and 8-sided dice.
Just
and all
finished.
Wait.
I got industry. That's
industry. Yeah, I've heard a lot of you. Well, you told we were talking about
really
that
good.
too. Wait a sec. You don't watch Game of Thrones because of dragons? Is that why? What do you
No,
think?
I'm just not.
Do you think it's childish?
No, I don't.
I haven't watched it either, Mike. I'm with you.
Yeah,
Why?
I don't want to get sucked
know.
into some big episodic fantasy thing. Now I am watching Shetland on which I guess I get through BritBox, which is great.
What season are you in?
Well, I'm waiting for episode 4 of season 7 to come
So you finished the whole first 6 seasons
twice.
Shetland is one of my favorite shows.
You mean Shetland?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone
it's
loves
great.
it.
Douglas Henshaw. No, he's
leaving the series.
He's great. We just stumbled across. I shouldn't say stumbled because somebody said, "Here's a low key great show that nobody talked about for the last 15 years called Halt and Catch Fire."
Yeah, really good show.
It's really compelling,
especially if you're nerdy.
It's really compelling.
No, it's really good.
I mean,
Game of Thrones
you never
is better.
said anything about that before.
Because I watched so much television.
Dude,
and
that's a gem.
I'm glad you brought up the point, ML, about it being an 8-part series, 5 days at Memorial instead of a movie. Because I much prefer that, that episodic thing.
More praise for ML.
Most people do.
Well, it's about time you did.
That's kind of where we're at, and it's so good.
No, they're like movies, and you can watch them in your home. And
the way they're done, the quality, the acting, the writing, right?
Yeah. So I've for years no cable, didn't binge watch any of this stuff.
And now you're in season 7 of Shetland
for the second time. Yeah, but the second time I've watched it, waiting for 7 to come out, and I'm waiting for the next couple of seasons of Endeavour to come out.
And it's Scottish.
But that's right. That's right. And it's not too far
Which is
from
good for you.
Aberdeenshire, where the Elrics hail from. But
so is Game of Thrones.
I know, but see, the thing is, I like the smaller shows where it's more about the characters and the story, and I don't need the pyrotechnics.
Then you'll love Halt and Catch Fire.
But that's what I was kind of thinking you were going with the dragons and whatnot. That's the great thing about that show. So many characters, so many storylines.
Yeah.
And you don't know who might disappear. And I don't know, there's so many twists and turns. And I was a little down on House of Dragons, the new one that's out there. But oh my God, after episode 3, it has gotten fantastic.
Well, I'm not against special effects.
It's a great story.
I like Star Wars, but Star Wars is just a Western. It's a real simple story, at least the original one.
Too simple.
The first one. Oh yeah, maybe, but I just like places where I think I might go and people I might run into and things I might see. The one thing I will say about all these shows that I like so much is, holy shit, these little towns are dangerous. Like if you see Wallander, which is about the smallest city on the tip of Sweden, everybody gets murdered. There's like 20,000 people in this town and half of them have been murdered. Same with Shetland.
You got to get there by a 10-hour ferry or whatever. Or
and you're going to be killed immediately. Yeah. I mean, there's 22,000 people. They have to end the show because the population is going to be decimated by the time they get to Jimmy Perez. And I don't know if Tasha's
Jimmy
still
Perez,
around.
by the way, is Douglas Henshaw. By the way, his partner, his sometimes roommate, his roomie.
I love him.
He's Scottish too. What's his name?
It's not Declan, but I know Duncan. Duncan.
No, but the actor's name. He is in a lot of good.
Ronson or Mark.
Yep. He's in a lot of good stuff too.
He's terrific too. He's a lovable rogue. But just to come back to this 8-part treatment, one of the things that I do like about watching TV now is that I feel like I'm reading a book.
Yeah.
Each episode is a chapter, and the problem is now I'm not reading as many books, which drives me crazy. But the story,
it's the same thing.
The story does get told, and if it gets told in a way that's compelling, the good thing about it is the characters are so good that if it was based on a book like Game of Thrones was, and you exhaust the source material, you can then build upon it because you now have this universe and these situations and these characters and this creative team where they can take in a whole new direction, as they have with Shetland and some of these other ones where, they ran out of books, but people love it. So they give them more. And I just think
it's great character development. It is. And the acting, just real quickly, Mark Menard's his name, who plays your Jimmy Perez's pal in Shetland. He's in a show called Guilt, which is kind of quirky and fun. You guys might like that. And then also Catastrophe, which is more of a comedy. That's another one. And then
like 8 Days of Memorial.
And then Unforgotten. So those are just some things that, if you're a Britophile like my man over here is, there's some things to check out.
Yeah, no, there's lots of good content out there. Of course, the best content is found here on the Red Shovel Network. And if you really want to watch compelling content, you can go to YouTube and subscribe to YouTube channel, ML Elric, which we wish you would do because you'll get an alert when we go live because we're not always as punctual as we are today.
We're never punctual.
Wait, are we wrapping it up already?
No. We're about to get to Geek of the Week.
We're still waiting for Geek of the Week.
We're getting to Geek of the Week.
Oh.
I'm going to make it easy. Elon Musk. Now he's weighing in
so what's room
on Ukraine.
then?
I mean, Elon, just make your damn cars. Build your rocket ship. Make those batteries at the gig factory. Enough of Elon. I don't need Elon Musk to try and solve all the world's problems.
I'm with you. I'm not the biggest Elon fan. I think Tesla,
he didn't rescue those kids.
I think Tesla.
I think that's coming out on Apple Plus too, by the way.
And there is a movie. There is a series.
The kids who were trapped underwater.
Yeah, which I don't want. What do I care about that story? It's weird.
I think it's called 13 Days in a Cave We'll Never Forget. It's sort of a play on 5 Days at Memorial there.
Remember they gave all those kids Xanax too to get them out of the cave?
And so there's a euthanation angle?
Well,
Apple TV Plus is in a rut.
I don't know if they got their parental consent from the kids trapped in the cave to give them.
And there's a flood, and they're not prepared. Holy crap. This is a network built on a single premise. I hope Sheri's getting a piece of all this. Herschel, if you're still watching, you go get that cut for your daughter.
By the way, on the market today, though, Twitter shares were halted in trading because Elon decided that he will, I guess I will buy the company now. He's being forced to buy the company, and everyone's like, "Yay!" putting money into it.
Yeah, so he's
the guy messes with people's pocketbook and their and that's what drives me nuts.
It's a good Geek of the Week candidate. What about? Are we going to get an actual music song? No.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. Got the time.
Did you have a busy day today?
I do, but no, you didn't let me finish the sentence. I was going to say
I know because you're in a hurry.
No, an actual song this week.
You're in a hurry.
So,
Let's go.
Last week was kind of a fun experimental.
No more talking about Shetland or anything.
It was a fun experimental.
I've just figured out how to repopulate Shetland. Elon Musk.
There you go.
He can single-handedly offset the death rate due to homicide in the most northernest part
Another
of
great
Europe.
show, by the way, ahead of its time.
No, you're not allowed to talk about it anymore.
Homicide.
You're in a hurry.
No, I wanted to know.
Talk about homicide.
I wanted to know if we had a real song this week, or are we going to do some more experimental stuff?
No. We talked to Sheri, and this issue of life and death is kind of a Cain and Abel thing. It kind of brings us back to original sin. So I thought this would be a great time to check in with one of the greatest new wave bands of all time that we've never played on the show so far. So here's In Excess with Original Sin. And Shawn, dream on, white boy.
You might know of the original sin. You might know how to play with fire. But did you know of the murder committed in the name of love? Yeah, you thought what a pity. Dream on, white boy. Dream on, black girl. And wake up to a brand new day, to find your dreams are washed away. There was a time when I did not care. There was a time when the facts did stare. There is a dream, and it's held by many. Well, I'm sure you have to see its open arms. Dream on, white boy. Dream on, black girl. Then wake up to a brand new day. Dream on, white boy. Dream on, black girl. Then wake up to a brand new day, to find your dreams
I love this tune. I love In Excess, and In Excess was when Kick came out. It was sort of like when Synchronicity with the Police came out. You heard it so much that you almost got sick of it. And you're like, but Kick had one of those great lines, one of the classic lines in all of pop music. Sometimes you kick, sometimes you get kicked. I mean, it just kind of it captures life in one lyric. But Original Sin was a #1 hit for In Excess in Australia. So that's where they hail from. So it doesn't really count as a big hit for the rest of us. But a great new wave band. You got that great danceable beat, fantastic rhythm section, horns, and
are they one of the quintessential new wave bands or no?
I mean, they're very new wave, but they're almost like pop new wave, almost like crossing over from because I don't get that sort of quite political message.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it has to have that.
Them. No, it doesn't have to, but I kind of like it when.
So let's see. Your top 5 would be the Smiths, I'm sure.
The Smiths, Morrissey, Johnny Marr, the solo work of Andy Rourke, and then anything that Mike.
They all fall under the Smiths.
No, top 5 all time.
No, just quintessential, not your favorite. Just like when you think of new wave.
Smiths, Depeche Mode, New Order,
yeah.
for sure. Duran Duran.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one more. I'm just trying to think.
One more. Oh boy, the last one is always the hardest one because you're going to leave off people. Okay.
Just what defined the genre?
I mean, danceable. Great lyrics.
Okay.
Danceable.
Says something.
Whatever you say.
He loves dancing.
So.
Oh, that's right. Sean's in a hurry.
Whatever you say. No, it's not that.
Sean already recorded.
Saying new
Carlos
wave is danceable.
He's got nothing.
Who was your guest this weekend, Carlos and Sean?
Great. Dave Burkett. We talked about the Lions.
Was he better than last week's guest?
No, nobody will ever be better than last week's guest. I'm just confused. New wave. So the Smiths are danceable to you. Is that like you take speed and beans and all that and then dance?
Can you cue up Headmaster Ritual? Can you cue up Barbarians? There's lots of danceable Smith stuff.
No, I guess if that's what you say, dancing is.
From the Ice Age to the Dole Age, Sean, there is but one concern.
Well, I guess square dancing is dancing too.
Some girls are bigger than others. Some girls' mothers are bigger than other girls' mothers.
Does Morrissey, did he have a residency?
Oh, he loved to dance, though.
Did he have a residency?
In Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I think he was on Broadway.
That seems very not Morrissey. I don't know why.
Well, they like to dance.
He's a guy who is hard to put in a box because I think there's a perception he's very moody and very reclusive. But if you go back when the Smiths first came out, he was going on morning talk shows. He was going on quiz shows. He was taking every media opportunity there was. He was loving the attention and the limelight.
So is it an act? The brooding,
No, I think he may just be like many of us where he just kind of wanders about trying to find out who he is and where he's coming from. He was in fact, I'm surprised we didn't hear anything from him after Queen Elizabeth II died. I thought for sure there'd be some inopportune tweet or some Sour Patch Kid observation, but he was very progressive when when New Wave was kind of in its heyday, but since then has embraced sort of the more nativist aspects of British culture, like keep the immigrants out, and
that's right,
which is pretty rich for a guy whose family were immigrants, first from Ireland to Manchester, and then
always that way.
And then from England, he lives in frigging L.A. Keep the immigrants out. How about you moody guys with quiffs who drive around in Jaguars and live in Clark Gable's old house? Get your ass out of here if you don't like immigrants.
That's how it often is, right?
Sure, everybody wants to pull the ladder up behind them.
Exactly. The immigrants come, look back and say, no, don't.
Yeah, no. So...
Okay, glad we got that settled.
In Excess. We love it when you give us some suggestions. We've had some great suggestions lately. In fact, we've had some suggestions for tunes that we've already played in Room 7609, which means that you're listening, but not to all of our episodes. So you can go to our back catalog, which is at mlsoulofdetroit.com.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
And you can also watch previous episodes on YouTube. That's channel ML Elric. Please subscribe, because when you subscribe, not only can you get alerts when we go live, but you will help support the show as we try and build our following on multi-platforms like Sheri Fink, who, while I was getting rejection letters, was being called one of the 10 best books of the year by the New York Times Book Review. But I do like her. I've gotten over it in the last.
She also has a doctorate, and you don't. Just saying.
And she's a doctor.
I mean, a real doctor.
She's an MD. She's a PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm starting to hate her again. Damn it.
She's so nice, though.
Damn it. We're getting through all that. Okay. Well, anyways, we appreciate your support of the show, both by following the show, liking the show, subscribing the show, sharing the show, commenting on the show, sending us feedback at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com, calling in and leaving a message at 313-288-9070. That's Butterfield 89070. I swear we're going to check that voicemail one of these days. And we want to thank Benjamin for his financial support. He made a donation by going to mlsoulofdetroit.com and hitting the donate button. Benjamin says, Grosse Pointe Co-op Preschool rocks! And sent a check. So thank you.
They do rock.
And Cookie sent a very generous donation, says, thanks, ML, having this podcast and for your community support, which is much appreciated. Nice. And I should just tell you, as a record-keeping matter, the ML for Detroit campaign finance account, which we are desperately trying to close. I'm trying to work through some issues with my bookkeeper, but we did send out 12 checks to community groups, nonprofits, and other worthy endeavors. For those of you who generously contributed to my failed city council campaign, your good work continues because we've taken that money and put it in the hands of people who are doing great things throughout the city and the state. And Cookie is one of those people with Cornerstone Village Community Association. So thank you for everything you guys are doing. And of course, we love to get your feedback. And, just to kind of liven up the show, I've been sharing the feedback with my team members. So, guys, here's some
cold reads. I love
here's some feedback for you and they're short, so you don't have to worry about editing them. Sean, would you like to get us started?
Sure. This is from Jeffrey Sigmund, or is it Siegmund?
I think he doesn't care how you pronounce it.
We'll say Sigmund. And he writes in, great episode, except for Sean being a moody turd in a punch bowl.
Jeffrey, well said.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Well done. So, Mark, what have you got over there?
This is a very passive-aggressive way of having a show meeting, because mine says...
and now you know why we're getting him at the last minute.
Love the show, still listen, even though we moved to Orlando. Is there a Spotify playlist with all the Room 7609 songs that have been featured on the show? Looking for something new that sounds like new wave. Check out Something New by Soul Psych. Definitely has that 80s feels. There is a playlist. It just hasn't been updated in a few shows.
How do people find it?
It's on Spotify. If you go to Spotify, I'm doing it right now. This is very exciting.
By the way, somebody liked Jeffrey's message here, so he's not alone.
That might have been me.
Maybe it was.
How many likes did he have? I know where one of them came from.
One. So was that you?
But it was a good episode last week. We encourage you to check our back catalog.
I don't even remember the episode last week. What did we do, Mark?
I don't remember either.
You don't remember either?
I've done too many shows since then.
We kicked the knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, people are enjoying this agony that I'm living through. Laura writes in, humorous viral tweet. Mel Tucker really made $95 million by smoking cigars and calling rushing plays for Kenneth Walker III.
That one's got a lot. That one got a lot of play.
And here's a Herschel Fink tie-in. Please fact check the contract. Detroit newsrooms need to correct the record that Matt Ishby and Steve St. Andre are not picking up the tab for all $95 million. The level of dis and misinformation regarding the coach's $95 million guaranteed contract is unlike anything I've ever seen. Now, I'm not sure Laura's right about all those details, but one of the reasons I'm not sure is because Michigan State will not release the contract. And so Herschel Fink,
what is going on there?
First Amendment lawyer to the stars, represents the Detroit Free Press, is trying to get the details of that contract from my beloved Michigan State University. So Laura, we are staying on that.
What do you think's in there? What is it? Do you believe these? You don't know. No one knows, but it does seem like they're trying to hide.
I can't imagine
how much Ishbia and the alumni are really paying towards it.
Probably.
Well, here's the problem that I have. My fervent hope is that there's nothing scandalous in there, and that the university is just too stupid to give it up like they should. So here's my desperation situation. The university's too stupid to give it up because there's nothing in there, So now my fear is that there is something they should be afraid of. And that's why, as I've written in the Free Press, you need to be transparent so that we don't all sit here for weeks and months and speculate and let this thing fester when really you get it out there, it's going to get out there eventually, and it's either going to be bad and you're going to take the hit, or it's not going to be that bad and you're just going to show everybody how stupid and how paranoid you are, which is a different problem and perhaps an even greater problem than any live grenade that may be in that contract.
As a Michigan fan, I'll even admit this: it's way too early to judge whether or not people love piling on right now because of how poorly, not just the losses, but how poorly they've looked. But my God, he's barely really even started there.
Right, and he's still dealing with, I mean, he inherited a program that was in disarray, and frankly, some of the best performers he has on that team right now are the guys that D'Antonio recruited, so we still don't have Mel Tucker's players in the program.
Well, they have some good recruit. I mean, who knows? I hate when people talk about recruiting because you don't know how good somebody is or isn't, but according to all the, different companies that do that, Rivals 24/7, they have a really good class coming in next year and the following year. So he's got to be able to recruit.
Oh, he can recruit all right.
You can't just do the transfer portal, though. You got to have that base of guys.
Well, we found that because I thought that the transfer portal might be the way they cover for their lack of depth, but it's the transfer portal players who are not performing very well, and there's nobody really behind them. So the portal is an option. It's not the answer. And time will tell, which I hate to say, but, Spartans are kind of ruined because Mark D'Antonio turned the program around pretty quickly and had a lot of success very early. I think we're going to have to settle in a little bit. I don't think it's going to take as long as it has taken at other programs, but it ain't happening this year. And last year, boy, they seem to get all the bounces. Nebraska gave both Michigan and Michigan State a gift. We both should have lost in Nebraska. We play the Peach Bowl. We end up going up against Pitt's third-string quarterback because we knocked the other guys out, and one of them didn't play. I mean, it was a great season. But
he's 2-0 against Michigan, so that might be worth the $95 million right there.
Well, I'll just tell you this as a Spartan. I don't ever want to go back to the days where our season comes down to beat Michigan. I mean, that cannot be the high point. And the good news is we can still finish 8-4. No, I don't think that's going to happen.
30-point underdog this weekend.
Oh, really?
Well, you sound positive.
I'd take the spread. I was in Columbus last year, believe me. At 30, I think we're still in the second quarter. So yeah, take the spread.
Yeah.
And I will be there. And by the way, I have 2 extra tickets if anybody wants to come and cry with me.
I'm sure there's some people from Columbus that'll buy them from you.
We're not selling them to people from Ohio, at least not unless there's a serious markup. And then they're going to have to sit with us, and we may throw them over the side. But ML, the other ML checks in. She's also upset about this MSU.
It's weird, man.
Stonewalling. But she says that, and this is a good point. If it's true, and we have no way of knowing since they're denying the FOIA, that Mel Tucker's contract at State is 10 years guaranteed with a $95 million buyout clause. Oy vey, as they say, marry in haste, repent at leisure. Better hope he cheats on his missus with a co-ed to trigger a for-cause firing. $0 buyout for that. So that's what we're hoping for? Well, this ML has much higher hopes.
Well, we've always heard that it was fully guaranteed, but that's not unusual.
I don't know whether it is fully guaranteed. I don't know.
I think that's been reported before, but that's not unusual at all with college football.
Well, here's the other thing: is other coaches who have had contracts that were fully guaranteed by the university were a real problem. In this case, as far as we're led to believe, that the money is coming from 2 individuals, and so if somebody takes it on the chin, it's going to be them. And even when you have top flight coaches whose salary is guaranteed by the coach, the university, you occasionally see boosters who come in and say, we'll come up with the dough, just get us somebody new. Carolyn weighs in and says, Stephen Ross strikes again. Everything about this oligarch and everything in his orbit is sleaze. His star quarterback Tua playing tonight after that concussion last week. The team covered up, And then he was just brutally concussed again on live TV tonight. It is time to force this racist and cheating POS to sell that team. And the Michigan legislature in Whitmer just gave this POS $100 million cash. Literally.
Well,
Wow.
There's a lot. I mean, I can understand why people would be mad at Stephen Ross, but I don't think the Tua concussion has much to do with him. I mean, the doctors they hired are approved by the NFLPA and the NFL, so.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that, but I will tell you, I saw a replay of it last Friday when I was in Chicago, purchasing a 1985 Buick Riviera.
Why were you in Chicago?
Purchasing a 19...
why? Why were you buying that car? Nostalgia?
I thought maybe Belvin would take me for a ride.
Nostalgia? Riviera. So, not the Cutlass. How'd you choose the Riviera over the Cutlass?
Love the Cutlass.
Oh, the Cutlass Supreme, sorry.
But the Riv is just a little cooler.
Really?
Plus, my 79 Cutlass burned up on me, which just left me with some trauma.
Yeah. Why'd you get it?
Because it's a beautiful car. It's a classic piece of Detroit iron. I've wanted one for years. I used to drive an 84 Riviera.
So it's a status symbol.
No, it's just...
three-quarter life crisis?
You can be cool that way. Cooler.
No, I'm
cool.
as warm as I'm ever going to be, but it's a beautiful ride. It's fun. You drive it, you feel, when you look out on the hood of a car like that and you're like, oh my God, there's a lot of sheet metal in front of me. And then there's a hood ornament. You almost feel like the captain of a boat.
And it's bouncing up and down and swaying, and swaying like a boat. It turns like a boat.
It may be a little
they're a little
slushy.
Fishy. They're a little fishy.
But no, this was somebody's project that they had to abandon in the middle of it. It's got new shocks. 4.5, 5 hours. It rode like a
How'd
dream.
you get to Chicago? Did you walk to save money?
My good friend John drove with me. I treated him to a Cubs game. I wanted to see some winning baseball.
So you drove with your friend John. Do we know John? Is John a friend of the show?
John's a friend of all men.
Are you a detective?
No, is this a
Why do you care?
A childhood friend, a journalism
a former
friend?
colleague of mine at Fox at Channel 4.
Okay, so you drive with him.
Multi-Emmy award-winning
Go
photographer.
to Wrigley Field. Who do they play?
They played the Reds.
Play the Reds.
And they wore their Wrigleyville jerseys. Have you seen these things? They're like powder blue, and they say Wrigleyville across the chest, and it's like blue on blue. And Wrigley Field, by the way, it's been over 20 years since I was there.
Is it? Yeah, they redid the whole thing.
Oh, it's freaky, man. It's really weird. It's really weird.
And then you went to dinner?
Then we went to Pequod's.
And what'd you eat?
Some fantastic
What's
pizza.
going on with you, Sean? What are you talking? You want any more mundane?
But not Chicago-style pizza.
No.
It's like a round Detroit-style pizza.
Okay, and then...
The cheese goes all the way to the edge of the pan and caramelizes. And
did you drive back that night or the next morning?
No,
I thought you were in a hurry today.
No, he doesn't have his podcast. Now he's engaged. He's like, and then what'd you get on the pizza?
No, so it was just you in the car on the way back, and
How
it
was
a
your
lovely
dump after
experience.
that pizza? Did you take a good dump?
I used a heavy-duty toilet.
A nice drive?
Did it taper off?
That's what we talked about last week, heavy-duty toilet.
Really?
That's right, yeah.
People love that episode, Crooked Judge. Why not? It drove like a dream, man. Drove like a dream. And the guy who brought the owner to the test drive showed up in a sweet-ass Pontiac Firebird. So it was like classic car heaven.
So rewinding 5 minutes, you were in Chicago. Is that where you saw the Tua?
Yeah, I saw a replay at the bar,
fencing?
and I'd heard about it the night before. But when you see his hand and he can't control his fingers, you're like, that feels like a neurological spine type of thing.
Well, it's called a fencing response, I guess.
We were talking about something interesting, and you want to go back to last week's news.
Talking about his
NFL.
food.
No, I want to know about his
Chicago with his best
I'm trying
friend.
to figure out. No, that sounds like a beautiful trip, but his curiosity, his love affair with these kind of cars, with that era of cars, because you don't go back to the '60s, right?
I have a '62 Pontiac Tempest. Le Mans.
Okay, so it's just nostalgia in general. That's cool.
No, I love cars that now the engineering on the Riviera is not the height of GM's powers, but it's a beautiful car, man, and Lila loves it.
Yeah.
She's clamoring for a ride.
Is Mark going to get a ride in this car?
Yeah, in fact, once my mechanic gives it a once-over and confirms that it's as roadworthy as it feels.
You'll bring it here?
I'll be driving. It's going to be my daily driver, man. When it rains, I'll be driving the Riv. When the sun is out, I'll be driving the Pontiac.
And
the rest of the year, I'll be driving the Chrysler.
Oh, I thought you had a Prius, too. Will Mark be allowed to sit in the front seat, though?
Mark will absolutely be allowed to sit in the front seat.
Well, I didn't know.
Talking about?
He can manipulate the power
if
seats.
you'd be in the back and
Diamond in the back with the
sunroof top, digging the scene,
the gangster lean. In this car, yes, it's got the Landau, the Spoker rims. Oh yeah, dude, this is.
Mark told me he was going to play the Talking Heads next week.
Sure, I will.
Okay.
Are you going to complain the whole show?
Only if you say the name of this segment is the Talking Heads.
The
play
Talking
room
Heads.
761.
No, I won't complain. I'm going to do like I did today, and I'll be quiet until the very end.
All right.
Black armband.
I want you to be though.
This is where we do the triage.
I ask a question.
That's where we. This is where we do the triage, and thank you for listening to us. We hope that you'll be back next week. We have some pretty groovy guests coming up, so please follow us on Twitter. You can find out what's going on with the show at Elric. Follow us on Facebook. That's Facebook page ML Elric, and of course, we appreciate if you would subscribe to YouTube channel ML Elric. Please support our sponsors. It's very important that they make it possible for us to be here. And you can support them by when you do business with them, let them know that ML sent you, and you can find links to their website on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. And until the Carlson Shawn podcast, featuring Mark Fellhauer last week.
Who was fabulous.
I know. I was like, God, I said, these guys are batting 1 for 3.
Our editor said, yeah, I know. Our editor said it was nice to have a pro on.
Oh, because I had good equipment?
Well, just your voice. You have good pipes.
I had
you have good pipes.
Good equipment.
You have great pipes, too. It's not the
not the
sound, it's the content.
No, you have good pipes. You have good pipes and good timing.
It's not.
It's the words, but and if you don't listen to them,
much.
it's like music.
I don't say much at all.
It's
No, we recorded before this show today, so I'm probably a little.
So you all your good stuff, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I would call that good stuff either.
You can't talk about the Tom Brady Gisele Bundchen divorce.
What?
Yeah, they hired divorce attorneys. It's over.
Is it all because
they can't make it?
Retire?
Come on.
There's no way that's true.
I'm sure that's a big part of it.
Is it true she's dating Drew Henson now?
Oh, that's a very funny joke that didn't make me laugh, but I acknowledge that it was.
No, that's clever.
I mean, it would be better if I laughed, but
but it is clever.
No, she left him for Brian Hoyer. Everybody's turning to Brian Hoyer now.
Man, I got to tell you that game.
Brady's not available. Zappy, I love Zappy.
So
he went
came
crazy
back to play.
on Michigan State.
Should he have come back? Forget his personal life, but I mean, just as do you think he should have come back? Not that it's your decision, but this is how sports fans
if
are.
I was Tom Brady,
yeah.
If I was Tom Brady, yeah, I'd play pretty much until I couldn't.
So if they're getting divorced, he'll try to play till he's 50 now, won't he?
Why not?
Yeah.
I think he really wants to own a team or be a president, or I mean, he's got to be around. he's got to be the quarterback to beat a chick.
Will that
right?
dim his star a little bit that he's not married to, Giselle?
No.
Based on all the fantasy football players I know, they don't even know he's married.
Yeah, I think it's.
I mean, these guys don't even follow the teams. They don't care if a team wins or loses. They just want to know how many catches a guy
I just mean as one of the people of the universe. Does that dim the star a little bit? Way beyond, because he goes way beyond NFL fans.
No. Why would it?
I'm just curious.
No, I don't think so.
This feels like the Sarah Jessica Parker debate where everybody's like, she's not that pretty, but she wouldn't piss on you if you were burning, so why are you even worried about it? You know what I mean? It's like,
that's how
so Giselle's available. Tom's a loser. It's like, she wouldn't have even looked at you, so why? I mean.
I'm not talking about that, and,
Look,
and I can't believe we're talking about Sarah Jessica Parker that way.
He's such a football robot. He will only be judged on what he's done in the world of football, period.
Yeah, you think people are fun and say, he gets the supermodels?
I mean, all the
no. You guys are.
Did his crypto?
Is he going to
sort of missing?
Is his rebound Ruth
here.
Buzzy? I mean, come on. It's,
no.
He's going to be okay. Tom's going to be okay.
No, you're thinking a little bit narrowly, but which isn't surprising. But
I'll bite. But I don't understand what you're saying.
No, just there are
the Camelot fantasy, perfect man,
that's
perfect
nothing
woman.
to. Yeah, maybe to some degree a little bit, but they're just a few people that walk the earth.
Getting closer, Mark.
That are up.
I don't think anybody
Cyrus
that are up in this.
Cyrus, make Sean's point.
I don't think
they're
anybody
up in
bought
this
into
space,
that.
and I'm just.
No, he still is. Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, as a football player, sure he'll still be, but beyond that, he transcended football.
No, people that don't even watch football know who he is, and that is not.
That's
gonna
my
change.
point.
That's not going to change.
So, yeah,
you think it will?
Well, I don't know. Who knows? I'm asking you.
I know. I don't. Well, maybe internationally. I guess I'll throw you that bone.
Yeah.
I suppose, but everybody already knows who he is. He'll be fine.
Do people know Tom Brady internationally? I think they know her. But
Oh yeah. Really? They do.
God, he's been in
Really?
He's been in every damn Super Bowl in the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's the one game that gets.
No, but I would think Roger Federer is better known globally than Tom Brady.
You might be right.
Possibly.
With
But
Federer.
there's people that don't like soccer, would never watch soccer, but they know who Messi is.
It's
I don't
true.
know if you want to put a lot of money on that, but
Or Ronaldo. Yeah, they do. Cristiano Ronaldo, yeah.
And Messi, yeah, for sure. It's just the same way they knew Pele.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
Sorry to side with my boy over
I thought
here.
you were in a hurry.
I'm his boy.
I'm still trying to figure out what the point was. I think
asking.
Sean's trying to figure out that too, so we may just want to triage.
That's a little.
I see. That's funny because I never
a little beyond you in that way, but that's okay.
Honestly, I never saw them as a
he brought it down to she's there's a woman and she's not attractive. What's that?
No, I'm just trying to figure out whether you think that part of his dazzle is that he has this amazing bit of arm candy. I mean, which I
never thought of her that way. No, she's
almost like a marriage of equals.
She's a global public figure herself, right?
So if what you're saying is she's the bigger.
In some circles, she probably is.
Yes,
right?
I'm with that all the way. I
she's
just
worth
wish you
more.
had synthesized that into something coherent before
I thought that was understood.
Well, that's the
But
problem.
your brain immediately took it to let's shit on a woman and say she's ugly.
What did I say? She's ugly.
She's not ugly.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
No. I said the thing with you have a bunch of a bunch of guys sitting around saying Sarah. Hold on a second. You have a bunch of guys sitting around saying Sarah Jessica Parker isn't attractive when obviously
you could use some of this.
When obviously she is, and my point is you have all these toads taking shots at other people when really the issue is nobody cares about you. So you sit around and you shit on.
Okay,
in fact, I'm witnessing this in practice right now. Thank you for the object lesson.
I got you. I'm just look. There are a few dozen people that are the black tie gown folks of the planet, and they were kind of in there in that way, right?
Yeah, but not really. You never.
They
saw
weren't.
them
It was
that often.
just as you know what I mean. They were kind of up there in this sort of ethereal place, and that's all. I don't know that it'll matter one way or the other, but he transcended football.
I just hope he plays better now.
Right? He's one of the very few people that transcended football players that transcend football.
Sure.
Agreed.
In
but
a different way than even Peyton Manning, right?
He's going to marry another A-lister. I mean, that's where he's going. That's why I say he's not going to marry Ruth Buzzy. He's going to marry somebody else who's in that stratosphere.
Wait, wouldn't that be crazy if he did?
I think she might be dead.
Okay. Well, yeah, she just died, I think.
Did she?
Well, what if he married Janice Ian?
Well, maybe that's why he's freaky.
So anyway, yeah, I guess we ended up talking about the divorce. Thanks a lot, Mark. You snuck that in there.
No, I was talking about the Carlos and Shawn. That's the danger of doing it late. Or early.
Early.
Or I don't know what I'm talking about. I thought you had to go.
I do. I do now.
Keeping with our 5 days.
I don't have to. I want to.
Keeping with our 5 days at Memorial theme, Cyrus, take us out of our misery.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Holy shark.
They're getting closer.
Batter up. He's Sean Windsor, and he's hungry.
No one wants to get eaten. But I've been eaten. And I'm here to tell you, it takes a lot more than that to bring a good man down. Yeah.